Welcome to the Life After Hurt podcast with yours truly, Nicole and Sweeney. Today's episode number 4, is entitled Izzie Checks In. Today's episode is a very serious one. Today, we are going to discuss identifying trauma. Now, before I get into today's episode, I want to disclose some information with you. The information that I'm going to share with you today are based on my personal experiences as well as the wisdom and knowledge God has given me. In no way I am a medical professional. I'm not a social worker. I'm not a psychiatrist or a psychologist. Again, anything I say is based off of my personal experiences and the knowledge God has given me. If at any point you see that you have signs of trauma or you've experienced trauma, I strongly encourage you to seek a medical professional for further evaluation and assessment. So, I want to share with you 3 ways on how to identify trauma experiences. Journee actually began showing signs that she had experienced trauma. When she had a moment to recollect everything that happened, she spoke to Izzie on the phone. They began to share what events took place during that night. And as Izzie began to process everything she had experienced, she began showing that she had signs of trauma. So, before we get started, let's define what trauma is. Trauma is a deeply distressing and disturbing experience. That is by definition in the Webster Dictionary. I actually added a small part to the definition. Trauma can also be a life altering experience. Trauma can also come in so many different ways. Trauma can show up in relationships. It can be racial trauma, generational trauma, environmental trauma, psychological and social trauma. There are so many ways where you can experience trauma in your life. Journee actually experienced relational trauma. She was betrayed by those who she had a deep and trusting relationship with. Many of us, like Journee, go through life not being able to identify the traumatic experiences that we had until after the fact. And sometimes that's because of the initial shock, just trying to survive the moment and get through whatever you need to get through in that moment. But it sometimes isn't until after the experience or situation happened that we realize we had trauma. I think this topic is so important to talk about because God wants us to be able to identify when we have had traumatic experiences so that one, we can know how to pray for ourselves, two, so that we can know what to ask for, and three, so that we know how to help other people, and four, we need to know how to empower ourselves. So, how do you know when you've had trauma happen to you? Journee had no idea that she experienced a traumatic situation in her life, but she showed some of the signs that she went through trauma. So, what are the 3 ways you can identify trauma? Number one, you begin to feel certain things in your body. The body is a very strong communicator. There is always a link between what a person thinks and feels and how it displays and is carried out in the body. So, some of the signs could be you're crying a lot, or You're not crying at all. You're sleeping more than usual, or you're not sleeping enough. You're mentally and physically exhausted more than usual. You haven't done any strenuous activities or done any strenuous work, but yet you're mentally and physically exhausted. You have a loss of an appetite, or your appetite increases. Another sign is that you feel a range of emotions simultaneously. So you feel a range of emotions pretty much all at the same time. So you may feel anger, you may feel shame, you may feel fear, you may feel like you're withdrawn all at the same time. You may also have symptoms where it's the opposite of withdrawn. Sometimes the symptoms will show up very loud or in loud ways or aggressive ways. So you may feel like you're ready to cuss somebody out. You may feel defensive. You may be ready to pop off at any moment of the day over the littlest things. You may also feel like you are constantly on edge and anxious. Our bodies, our mind, our body, and our soul are meant to be in alignment. It's how God designed us. We're meant to be in alignment. So when experiences happen to us, or traumatic experiences that happen to us, it can cause misalignment. And we're meant to be in alignment because God wants us to make good and sober decisions. And He wants us to be creative and operate in our best and highest version. And when those areas aren't in constant alignment, it throws us off. And more than likely, we've experienced trauma. The second sign that you can identify that you've experienced trauma is that you're constantly thinking about the situation that you experience, and you're replaying it in your mind over and over and over and over again. You wake up to thinking about the situation, you go to sleep thinking about the situation. Some of you are thinking about the situation so much that you are even dreaming about it. You're constantly occupying this experience in your mind. You may have even said to yourself, I can't think straight. Or it's hard for you to make decisions when normally it's really easy for you to make decisions. Or you are just mentally distracted. You can't focus or concentrate. And the third sign that you may have experienced trauma is when you feel like you have no purpose in your life. Just like Journee stated, her eyes were full of tears, crying out to God, and she verbally said that she felt like she had no purpose. She was overcome with so many different emotions. She didn't know what to do or how to fix it. And most times than not, when we are in a traumatic experience, we have a tendency to want to solve what the issue is or try to avoid those feelings. And when we don't know what to do, we feel numb. We feel like there's no reason to be here. We feel like there's no purpose. And that's what Journee concluded over her life. She concluded that she had no purpose. But I want to encourage you. If you feel like you have no purpose, just trust the process. God will never leave you. He will never put you in an experience where He does not have better for you. He knows exactly what you're going through, and He knows the solution for your problem. Things are going to get better for you. Trust God and trust the process. And today's affirmation is, even when we don't know how to describe our tears or name our hurt, God has the exact remedy to heal our wounds. All right, y'all. Thank you so much for tuning in. I look forward to you tuning in next week. And remember that God is proud of you. Peace.